So I was a very much, a Mr. Mom kind of dad.
How much is mindset and attitude a factor in all of this?
It was the 50th anniversary of our first date.
It doesn't really matter what level of the game you are at. If you want to get to the top of the mountain and stay at the top of the mountain, you hustle.
It sounds great to do your sessions from home or to do them from wherever you are, even on vacation.
I somersaulted all the way down the mountain. I landed splat at the bottom of the mountain. They drew a chocolate outline around my career.
You almost blew it with your wife-to-be.
It has only taken me 320 some odd episodes of the podcast to finally get this man on the show, Joe Cipriano. I've known you for so long, but I have to tell you, the idea of having you on the podcast has been so intimidating to me for so many years.
Oh, Mark. Oh, please. Come on.
I'm serious.
No.
You know what part of it was, and this is actually something that you and I ended up talking about before we did this, but part of it was, I want to have a conversation with you that is unlike any other conversation that anybody else has had, right?
Love that.
And you said it. You're like, I've told all the same stories. Everybody's heard everything. We've literally read the book. I mean, right? So so many times I've sat down and thought, I got to get this guy on, but how do I come at it from a different angle, or how do we have a different conversation?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, there's two things that kept coming up in my mind as I was trying to think about this. And those two things were longevity and legacy. Because, I mean, I refer to you as one of the living legends of our industry, and I don't know.
You are so
I don't know what you think about that, but just so you know, we all, like literally all the rest of us in the industry, that's exactly how we think about you. But I thought, you know what, this is a guy that's got something to add to that conversation. And I think not just from a voiceover standpoint, but from life in general. And so that's why I thought, you know what, I want to start this off by talking about Anne.
Oh, I love it. One of my favorite topics.
I want to talk about
my wife.
I want to talk about successful marriage, because I think you've probably got a few little nuggets to drop on us. As somebody who's been married for a minute now, done it in the midst of a crazy career and everything that's happened. And I mean, I knew if I brought up Anne right out of the gate, I knew I'd hook you, because I know that's one of your favorite subjects to talk about too.
And when you did, I got a chill down my back. It's so sweet. Because yes, my gosh, I've known Anne for most of my life. When I met her, I think I was, let me think about that. I think I was 20 or 21. Actually, we last year celebrated, it was the 50th anniversary of our first date.
Wow.
And yeah,
that's awesome.
And I
love that you know that, by the way.
What's that?
The 50th anniversary of your first date. Like the fact that you actually, most of us are out here struggling to remember when our actual wedding anniversary is, but here's Joe just remembering the 50th anniversary of their first date.
Yes. I guess I'm a little bit of a romantic on that. And actually, Mark, it's a date. It's April 24th, and it's a time of the year that a lot of really wonderful things have happened for me. I've gotten big jobs, and this goes back to when I was in radio as well. And it throughout voiceover. So I always look forward to April. We get into the middle of April, and I just sit there thinking, what could happen? What's going to happen
this year?
Yeah, it's great. But yes, boy, everything that you just said about longevity and having a marriage and having a friendship, a love affair for that long is... I agree. It's pretty remarkable, because a lot of my friends, unfortunately, were not able to do that for a number of different reasons. But it really comes down to, I always give the credit to Anna, it really comes down to her personality and her ability to handle me. And I think I'm pretty much a nice guy. But you know what? You can't... I remember her early on saying to me, you can be yourself when we're together, because I would always want things to be great. And I always work to have great friendships and great professional relationships. And she goes, I know that there are times when you're not feeling like smiling, and it's okay to be
Yeah.
like that with me. And that was a big deal, because I guess I always would put on a facade, and so that was number one. Number two is we just happened to be two individuals, and maybe through the stroke of luck, if she's having a bad day, week, month, and I'm having a bad day, week, month, they don't coincide, where the
Yeah.
other one is doing okay and we can compensate for it. So we're
Nice.
very
Yeah.
forgiving and very supportive of one another, and we know that. And also another big deal is we're both broadcast kids. So she went to college for journalism, was a news writer, producer, worked in radio. We met in radio on her first day at NBC in Washington. And 50 years ago last year on April 24th. And so having that understanding, Mark, you know what it's like in the voiceover world. Well, we just had it today. We were going to start this an hour ago, and I
Yep.
said, "Oh my gosh, I am so sorry, Mark. I have a conflict, and what is your schedule like? Can we push?" And all of that, and that happens all the time in our lives. Where we're ready to go out to dinner, but then I get a call from my agent that says you have a booking in 15 minutes, and some spouses would. How many times can you take that?
Yeah. Yep.
Understandably, but it's because she knows the business, and she worked in the business, and she knows that it's not a big deal. It just means that instead of going out to dinner right now, we'll go out to dinner 20 minutes from now,
Yep.
and it's no big deal, but
I
it
have
goes to her.
often said that having the right person in your corner, the right spouse or whatever, it can be one of the biggest contributing factors to whether or not you succeed in this industry, because it's such a crazy industry, and
Mhm.
you need someone who understands it, and someone who will work with you, and someone who will have that patience and that acceptance. And
Yeah.
I don't remember the date, and now you got me feeling guilty because I'm gonna have to go back and look it up.
Well,
My
guess what? Here's the nice thing. You can always edit this.
That's right. But my first date with Mary Ellen, this is a
Yeah.
true story.
And I've met Mary Ellen, by the way.
She was gonna meet me. So I invited her, I gave her my address and said, "Come to my apartment, and then we'll leave from my apartment to go out." As she was knocking on the door to my apartment, I was running out the door for a fire call because I was a volunteer firefighter at the time.
Oh,
And
wow.
so literally I open up the door, and she's like standing there getting ready to knock on the door, and I am literally running out the door to a call. And I looked at her, and keep in mind, this is our first date. So this is the first time we've met in person.
Yeah.
And I said, "I got to go. You can go, and I'll call you when I get back or whatever." I said, "Or, just go wait in my place, and I'll see you when I get back." Right. And literally, as I'm running down the hallway, and when I came back and she was sitting in my apartment waiting for me, I was like, "Okay, there's something here." Like,
Yeah.
that is not the decision that 99% of the people would have
Right.
made, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to
Absolutely.
go into this strange guy's apartment and sit and wait for him to come back from a fire call. But I was like, "Okay, you know what? If she can accept what I got going on in that life, when
Yeah.
I was doing that at the time, then
Yeah.
she'll definitely understand and be able
Wow.
to
And I
work with
learned
me."
something there. I did not know you were a firefighter at one
17
point.
years I
Oh
was
my
on
gosh.
the fire department. And yeah,
Wow.
that was my first date experience with her, was leaving her standing at the door
Wow.
of my apartment.
Amazing. Amazing. And like I said, we've met. We were on a retreat together, a voiceover retreat together, one of the JMCs. And actually, I saw more of her than you, because you were not feeling well that trip. The combination of the travel to Europe and also being sick and all of that. So Ann and I spent a lot of time with her.
She still talks about
We
going out
love
shopping with Ann and Anna, because she went out with
Right.
JMC's wife, and they're out shopping in Dublin with their, I tease her about her private security guard and limo driver. And She's like living lifestyles of the rich and famous here. So
And
I was
let
like,
me
yeah.
apologize for her going out to, she may have picked up some pointers from Ann and Anna, because they are professional shoppers. I can tell you.
There was definitely some things that went on that I was a little bit nervous about, because I was like,
Yes.
look,
Yeah.
I'm not Joe. I'm not JMC. Like, we got to be a little bit more realistic about our shopping adventures, and there won't be private security. And
Oh, wow.
on this vein, there's a couple of stories that I've heard you tell at conferences before, and two in particular that stood out to me. So I want to share one of them, and correct me if I get this a little bit wrong along the way. But
Okay.
it was a story that you and AJ McKay told in a session, and it was about a time that you guys were out driving, and you got a call from your agent, urgent promo, got to do this thing right now. I remember you saying that it was raining.
Yeah.
And that you pulled over into, I think it was like a gas station or something, because they have the big overhead canopies, and you were hoping that that might make it a little quieter or whatever, so that you could try to record your promo sitting there in the front seat of the car or whatever.
Yeah.
But the part of the story that really stood out to me there was you were talking about the fact that you were contractually obligated at the time to be within so many hours of studio at any given time. And so you literally took your stuff with you every time you went somewhere. And I remember thinking at the time, like, maybe promo's not the life for me. but I also thought, for a guy who family is everything, I mean, everything.
Yeah.
How did you balance that?
Yeah.
How do you maintain the commitment that is required to play the game at that level, where you're pulling over in gas stations trying to record promos while you're driving, but yet somehow in the midst of that, you've lived this amazing life and had all these amazing experiences, family, friends, tennis, Italy, all the things. How do you balance that? Because there's some of us that are out there that are trying to do like corporate videos and thinking, oh my gosh, I got no time for anything. I just want to know how you do that and how you've done it for so many years.
Well, and it's part of probably something that we'll talk about, how the business has changed. Okay. So a lot of that, Mark, was when I really started working in Hollywood in VO, it would be early 1980s. All right. And that's when I was starting to do movie trailers and things like that, and some promos. But 1988 is when Fox decided, you're going to be our voice. You're going to be the voice of all of our comedies. And in fact, I just had dinner with the two heads of creative at Fox at that time, Lou Goldstein and Bob Bibb. And it was Bob Bibb who heard me on the radio in Los Angeles and called the radio station and said, I need to get in touch with this guy, Joe Cipriano, because they were looking for a voice. So that was 1988. So my daughter was born in 1984, right? So she's 4 years old. My son was born in 1987. Okay, so he's only a year old. But the way the business worked back then, there was no such thing as ISDN, obviously, and you would go into work. And yes, I would work 6 days a week doing promos all day long into the night. But the amazing thing that happened, and I helped to mold that and push that, number one was, promo doesn't start usually here in Hollywood until about 1 p.m.
Okay.
Everybody meets in the morning to review the spots that were finished last night. All of the writer producers, the head of creative, everybody meets, watches the spots, and then they get their marching orders, whether you're going to do a recut or we got to do a reread, or this one's good to go. By the time that happens, it's like noon. And then everybody has a quick lunch, and then the sessions start at 1 p.m. So for me, I was able to bring my kids to school every single morning, Mark. Nice. I never missed it. We had breakfast together, drove them to school, would volunteer at lunch at school because their lunch was like 11:30 or 12.
Yep.
And I would help serve food and da-da-da-da. So I was a very much, a Mr. Mom kind of dad. But Ann was doing the same thing as well. So I wouldn't go to Hollywood. I wouldn't leave Pacific Palisades until 12:30. And I'd go work, studio all over the place, all over Hollywood. And most of the time, you would have a break around 3 o'clock.
Okay.
And I would zoom home and pick up the kids from school.
Nice.
And take them to where they were going after school, drive back down to Hollywood, work. And I always had it in my calendar. Mary Ellen Lord, Rita Venari knew that at 6:30, I need to break, be home to have dinner at 7 o'clock with the kids, with Anne, start homework, and then I would go back to Fox, usually about 8:30, something like that, and then work till whenever, sometimes till midnight, sometimes only till 10 o'clock. So that's how I was very lucky.
Were you ever nervous about that? To be able to say, hey, look, I want to do the thing. I'm going to be your voice. I'm going to do your promos, but I got to pick my kids up from school, or I got to be able to go home for dinner every night. Like, did you ever get any pushback from that? Or when you're the voice, they're like, they'll work around you?
Well, you know what? It worked out. It just so happened that the timing of what I needed to do worked out. The only thing that I pushed was the dinner thing.
Yep.
And it's okay because it's about a shift change anyhow. And they've already done the afternoon spots, the reading. So now they have to mix them. So there's going to be a 2-hour period. Yep. I'm not the only voice. Don LaFontaine is there doing the dramas. We would have like Peter Cullen, maybe would do a few things. We'd have a couple of other voices. And so they have to mix all of those things.
Yep.
So it was a perfect timing for me to be able to go home. By the time they were done mixing and they have their own dinner, let the mixers and the audio folks and the room producers have their dinner, then boom, we're back working again. So it was unbelievable luck, and it didn't take a lot of pushing. I have to admit, you were saying, were you ever worried about that? I never really told the people at Fox that I'm doing this. It was my agents that had to deal with it. And so I would say to Mary Ellen, I have to be gone at 6:30. So they had to massage that. And that's why I was with Sutton Barth Venari for 25 years, because they were able to do it.
But that's also, I love that you set that priority from the very beginning, right? Because I think for some of us, it's backwards. It's the other, right? I got to get this job. I have this amazing opportunity. I have to be available. I can't risk it. It's too important to the family, to the career, to whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes at the expense then of family or family time or whatever.
You can't blame any voiceover talent for that, because of the big switch in what we do, and the fact that we can be instantly available and do our sessions. It sounds great to do your sessions from home or to do them from wherever you are, even on vacation. But it ain't that great if you're pulled away from the family and you have to do that. We didn't have it. It wasn't quite that urgent back then. They didn't have, I want Mark in 15 minutes.
Right.
Because Mark's already booked, and he needs travel time to get from Burbank back over the hill to Hollywood. So, a lot of that was also the built-in travel time, that saved us as well.
Mike Pongratz. I think actually Mike came to your place and did your promo thing that you did at your home a few years ago.
Yeah, in Bel Air. Yeah.
I remember going back to the World Series here a couple of months ago, and Mike was doing promo for Sportsnet, and Toronto Blue Jays are in the World Series. And I remember seeing him post like the one game that went like 17 innings or something like that. Like he literally had to go into the studio at I think it ended at 2:30 in the morning or 2:45 in the morning or something like that. He had to go into the studio at, whatever it was, 2:30, 2:45 in the morning to be able to record promos now that the game was done, to get set up for the next game in the World Series that was coming in. And I remember thinking like, oh man, could I, do I want to, you know what I mean? Like, but talk about how that shifted then, because you're right. Now it's instant availability. It's taking your gear with you in the car. It's having it with you every time you go on vacation or on a trip or anything. So how has it changed?
Boy, and it's a godsend, for us. And if you're lucky enough to work all the time, and have great clients that you're working for, great buyers that you're working for. And by the way, with Mike, I kind of took him to task way back then, because he was suffering with that. I can't do anything with my family. I can't go anywhere. We haven't taken a vacation in I can't remember how many years. And I said, Mike, that's got to stop right now.
Well, he literally is the voice of every single television network in Canada, I think.
It's amazing.
So,
it's amazing.
Like I say that to my wife all the time. I'm like, every single commercial in this country is voiced by Matt Fogarty, I think. And every single promo in this country is voiced by Mike Pongratz. It's like those two guys are the voiceover in Canada.
Wow. That is unbelievable. See what happens if you take the Joe Cipriano promo master.
Apparently that's what it was. On second thought, Joe, maybe I need to come to your place and we need to set this up because.
Well, so that is part of the big change. And what is so wonderful about the 90s and the 2000s, let's see, ISDN really came in, I think, around 92, 93. Okay. But it wasn't really the go-to. It took a long time for voiceover talent and especially the buyers to buy into this idea of having their talent not there, doing ISDN. So you had pretty much almost all of the 90s that you had to drive to these sessions, which is why Don LaFontaine had a limo, I mean, he was the busiest guy in Hollywood. He holds the record for the most Screen Actors Guild and after contracts signed, and he would do scores of them a day. And back then, sure, you could be the voice of a network, but for example, Fox back then didn't have a studio at the time. So they would book out to recording studios all over Hollywood. And so we would be constantly driving to these different studios. Sometimes they would say, is there any chance you could take the video for the next spot that you're doing? Can we give you the reel and drop it off at the studio that you're going to next? And, we would do that.
Yep.
So that kind of community and that feel of you were a part of something that was pretty exciting. I had always wanted to get into network television. It's what I wanted to do. And when I was a disc jockey and you were in radio, when I became aware of these voices that represent these national networks, I said, wow, how do I do that? Which got me to move to LA. So that whole, just the way the business was done, I would see you, if you were here working and doing promos, I would see you at least once a day, even though you're working on different networks, different projects than I am, because we were all going to these studios. It was a wild cycle. And you would see, I'd see Don 3-4 times a day, at the Fox vendors, but also at some of the other work that we were doing as well. And he would just bounce around. So that's the biggest change is that loss of personal involvement, one-on-one FaceTime with the people that you work for and for the people who do what you do. And let me tell you, that is a little bit like working with a therapist because you get to hear what everybody is going through in this crazy washing machine cycle of being thrown all around Hollywood to different studios. And we would share those things. And, there's only, you go to one vendor and maybe they have 3 studios that you can work at. And there are 5 voiceover talent waiting to work. There was a lot of sit around time in the lobby, telling stories and hanging out. And so that's the big change. And then, of course, when we went to ISDN and IPDTL and Source Connect and all of the other ways to connect, now everything is instant. And we didn't have instant back then.
One of the few regrets that I have, and I don't think I've made too many major blunders in my career, but one of the major blunders that I feel like I made, and I didn't realize it at the time, it wasn't until years later, but I had got signed with an agent in Toronto. And I say, if you look at Google Maps, I'm an hour and 20 minutes from downtown Toronto.
Okay.
At 2:30 in the morning, because at any other time in the day, I am 3 hours from downtown Toronto. And the agent was trying to get me to come into the city for auditions. And I was like, are you kidding me?
Wow.
Like, I got to take an entire day to get write 6 hours 3 hours there, 3 hours back, plus whatever time in the studio for auditions. And I didn't understand it. And I got to a point where I said I wouldn't do it anymore. And the reason why I came to regret it was because the reason why she wanted me to do it, I wish I had understood this better at the time, was it was to get me in front of all of those studio people
Yeah.
so that they could see me, they could see what it was like to work with me, they could see how I could take direction or whatever. And I totally screwed the pooch on that one. And Toronto is, it's a very tight knit, or it feels like it's very tight knit. It's very much about relationships, who you know, that sort of thing. And not that that's a bad thing, but I feel like I really missed that opportunity by not recognizing that at the time. And I wonder how much of that we have lost just because of the fact that everything is home studio, it's Source Connect or
Yeah.
whatever, right? And you miss out on some of those relationships because I'm guessing at least part of your longevity has probably come from those relationships that
Yes.
you built, going
Yeah.
studio to studio or network to network or whatever.
Yeah.
Meeting those people, having conversations with those people, sitting in with them in the lobby like you talked about or whatever.
Yeah, because work begets work,
Yeah.
and relationships continue the work because everybody moves.
Yep.
Everybody wants to move their career along, whether you're a director in the booth or you're a writer producer. You're always looking for what's the next thing that I can do, and they want to work with people who make their job easy, and more importantly, who make them look really good. You know, and so when you find those people, and it could be a voiceover person, it could be an editor, it could be any number of positions, you want to work with these people as much as you can. And that's how everybody gets drawn in and pulled in. But thankfully, I have to say, Mark, because that era is gone, and now we do work a lot with folks kind of faceless, you know,
Yep.
although it's fun to go on Zoom every once in a while. But there was that time in between before Zoom. I remember being the voice of Food Network back in the early 2000s. And Food Network is based in New York, and I'm in Los Angeles, and we did it on ISDN. There were producers that I worked with for years that I had never seen in person. And I
Yep.
remember meeting them after working with them 5 years, having an amazing relationship over audio.
Yep.
Back and forth, knowing their kids, knowing their husbands, their stories, what they do, and then seeing them at Promax. I was at Promax, and they were there here in LA, and going, oh my gosh, that being able to meet somebody finally face to face after all those years was amazing. But what I was going to say is you can still develop those relationships over ISDN. Well, ISDN's gone, IPDTL, Source Connect. You could still do that just by being interested in people and encourage them to talk and communicate. And sure, they want to get the job done and all of that, and they're on limited time as well. But there are those little nooks and crannies where you can start a relationship and develop a relationship and have it, you know, enrich it. So I'm very happy about that we can still do that.
One of the other stories that you told at a conference that stood out to me, and I wish I could remember because it might have been in Ohio. It might have been at the Midwest voiceover conference that we did in Ohio, which I think was the first time that I ever met you.
Yeah, I think so.
But we were sitting on a panel and we were talking about marketing, and here I am thinking, okay, this is Joe freaking Cipriano, who's never marketed himself a day in his life because he's, you know, Hollywood and agents and all that sort of stuff. And you started telling a story about how you would sit down and you would read through Variety and all the different trade magazines, looking for what networks doing what new shows might be coming, what new opportunities might be out there, so that you could ultimately pass them on to your agent.
Absolutely.
And so you were hustling the whole entire time. And I was like, holy man, it doesn't really matter what level of the game you are at. If you want to get to the top of the mountain and stay at the top of the mountain, you hustle. And maybe how you hustle looks different from how I hustle, looks different from how somebody else hustles. But that concept was universal, and that really blew my mind.
Yeah, that's well, you know what? And again, that's a personality trait and a type of person. And I hope I can remember that I go back and we talk about this, because also in that era of all of us being in Hollywood and working, everybody was in the union. There was no such thing as non-union work. You were in SAG-AFTRA, and most of the people that worked, especially in promo, they were handled by their agents. They knew nothing about the business.
Right.
They knew nothing about microphones.
Yep.
The engineer, the mixer would come into the booth and set the mic, depended upon where you were, and then go back and sit down and look at you and go, and come back in and move it a half an inch. I mean, it was ridiculous. And most of the talent knew nothing about the business and relied on their agents to do that. But no, I'm a different person. I wasn't blessed with the voice of Don LaFontaine. Don was a pretty smart businessman, but still, and a lot of the other voices that were working. And I always felt I had to work twice as hard, 3 times as hard to keep this going. I fell into this. I was discovered in 1988 as a voice and a network that said, wow, we want to make this voice when anybody hears, if they're not looking at the screen, if they're off in the kitchen at the refrigerator and our promo is on, they know that they're watching Fox. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's really important. And so I knew that I have to stay on top of this and find new opportunities all the time. What's coming to my network? What's going to other networks or movies? Or I was never a commercial voice. I never could really get arrested in commercials. So and it's because I sound like a promo voice, and whatever else that I do. So I would work. I got so many jobs, Mark, because of that, and calling Mary Ellen or Rita and saying, "Hey, did you know about this?" And they said, "Oh my God, we did hear about that." I go, "Yeah, I was reading in the trades that this is the producer." Oh, okay, we're calling him right now, and boom. They would be like, "How did you find out about this?" Well, one of our talent, had told us about it, and that's how I would either get an audition or my demo would be sent to them, and I would get that gig. I got a gig once, sadly, because a voiceover talent put in that, hey, I'm auditioning. I was on Facebook. I'm auditioning for this job. The guy who used to do it was let go, and I went, oh my God, I called Mary. Did you know that there's an opening there? No. Oh my God, could you get my tape over there? And I got
careful what you share on Facebook.
Exactly. And you've said that before as well,
I did a panel recently, that's voiceover. And when Rudy called and asked me to be on the panel, at first I was like, I don't know how I feel about being asked to be on this panel, because the idea of the panel was it's voice actors who have hit a peak and then found a valley kind of deal, right? You've gone up and you've come, but then you come back up again, right?
Yeah, sure.
And what do you do to get yourself back up there again? And there's a part of me that's like, well, that's kind of an uncomfortable thing to talk about. But then there's a part of me that's like, but I'm one of the most honest guys in the industry, so I have no problem telling people. And I said in the session, I said, look, I've hit a level in my career where I felt very successful and, slid a little bit down and worked my way back up again. And I said, and I've hit a point where I thought, okay, this is where I want to be. I'm feeling good. I'm at the top of the mountain. I got kicked in the arse by a mountain goat. I somersaulted all the way down the mountain. I landed splat at the bottom of the mountain. They drew a chocolate outline around my career. And I'm like, where do I go from here type deal? And so it's fitting that I have you on now to talk about longevity, because peaks and valleys, I think, are a part of any industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the voiceover in particular, where trends change so often, and you can be the money voice and you can ride that wave for a long time, but then something shifts, a different producer comes in, and now the money voice isn't what they hear in their head anymore, or something like that. But I feel like you're a guy who has you peaked and stayed there for decades.
Well,
I think
Mark,
I think part of that, I think you've already talked about a little bit, which is the relationships that
yes,
you've built. and how much you've invested into those relationships,
Yeah.
and getting to know people, and just being someone who's reliable and trustworthy and whatever. But it's not, I mean, I don't think it's like this super common thing to have this multi-decade spanning career, in particularly in one format
Hmm.
where it has changed many times, and I'm sure you've
Yeah.
lived through those changes,
Yeah.
and you're still
But
here, and you're still doing it, and you're still.
it's what's in my head is Chuck Duran, Stacey Aswad are
Yep.
very good friends of ours, Ann and I, and we get together with them often. And we were doing an interview with them about our book, and Ann said something. She goes, it's interesting. Um, People in voiceover industry think that Joe's career has been this,
Mm,
you know, and then leveled off. And she said it was nothing like that, and it's not. It may look like that, but I suffered those same valleys. I call it the roller coaster.
yep,
I had a lot of incredible highs and heartbreaking, crushing blows way into my career,
yep,
way into doing Fox for 12 years and CBS for about 6 years, 5, 6 years, and then losing CBS and losing more than half of my income. And, sadly, we all tend to, as human beings, and maybe not a good business decision, and here I am saying that in front of you, that you live within the means of your income,
yep,
and that's not smart. But so when you're going at a certain pace, and you think, wow, this is awesome, and then you lose more than half of your income, that'll wake you up a little bit,
oh, yes,
and that also leads to what you talked about earlier, reading the trades every morning, preparing for any uh, any drop like that. I'm big on having a lot of streams, a lot of
yeah,
genres, working in
yep,
a lot of different genres. Um, Not only for the income streams that are will come to you, but creatively, so that
yep,
you're working for me in game shows, live announce, promos, trailers, radio imaging, and on and on and on.
yep,
But I learned after that first huge hit was that you got to diversify so that when you do lose something, it doesn't hurt as much, because you have
yep.
so much going out there. But yeah, listen, that's just the way this business is. And sure, I have been lucky, and I've gone down, but even when I was at my lowest, I would hit another lucky strike of suddenly NBC was looking for a drama voice, and I'd never done drama, but I said, I'm going to give it a go. And then I got it, and it dragged me out and it brought me back up. So now I'm doing NBC dramas and Fox comedies, and then the dramas dropped off. And that was another hurt. And then I called the folks at CBS now, 3 years have gone by, and they said, we do want to have you back. And I came back, and then all of a sudden I'm doing Fox and CBS again. So you got to stay on your toes. You always have to be looking for opportunities. It's not like the old days when I was talking about the folks that were in voiceover and knew nothing about the business and relied on their agents to call them with bookings, 5, 6, 7 bookings a day. You have to make your own luck, and be out there looking for it.
I think part of why I'm fascinated by you, though, is because I've had conversations with people who have been through, glory days or whatever, right? Oh, I was working on all these networks, I was making all this money. And when the shift came for them, whatever it was, whether their voice was no longer the voice, or, the trend changed, whatever the trend was, and down to the bottom of the mountain they go and sit there
Mhm.
because they don't know what to do next. But you don't sit there. You
No.
don't sit there. How much is mindset and attitude a factor in all of this? Because I'll tell you, like, you seem like one of the happiest guys that I've ever met. Like, literally every single time I see you, you always have a smile on your face. You are always in a good mood. I've never got the sense that it's insincere. I'm out here, I got to put a show on because I'm Joe Cipriano and I'm in front of all these people or whatever. Like, it's always felt like, no, this guy's the real deal.
Well, thank you. Wow. I mean, thank you so much for that. And it is real because I do believe that positivity and and a great attitude and an excitement for life and an excitement for your career and what you're doing um, means something.
Yeah.
And it is what keeps you focused and interesting. If that's if I could say that, being positive, being around somebody who's positive makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And I think that that's part of it. Maybe it's the way I was raised. Maybe it's my mom and dad. It's my brother. It's my wife. It's my friends. It's everybody that I know has a positive attitude. And sure, listen, I have a lot of friends right now, and it was the 1 year anniversary on January 7th that 10 families, very close friends of ours, I mentioned Pacific Palisades.
Yep.
We raised our kids in the Palisades and lived there for 20 something years. They all lost their homes, lost everything they have ever owned.
Right.
This little thing that Anne needle pointed for me
Yep.
that's in my studio, all those little keepsakes
Yep.
that they have are gone. And coming out of that, and I'm watching my friends come out of that, and I'm amazed at how they're handling it.
Yep.
Can you imagine? I don't know. You may have dealt with that at some point, but you kind of think that that's the worst thing that could happen, besides a death,
Yep.
is and I'm just looking around my room and just look around at what you have. And then all of that is incinerated. It's gone. All of those memories, those pictures, that picture with Don, with Ron Scalera, who is the head of promos at CBS, who took me over from Fox. All of that is,
Yeah.
all those memories gone. It's just unbelievable. But I see that it took that hit and that emotional roller coaster that they were on. And now we're a year past, and they're almost to the point where they have their permits and they're going to start building again. And my friend Russ, who I play tennis with every Saturday, who lost his house, he said when we left, as the flames were coming down, we ran out with 2 suitcases. But they just moved back to the Palisades in a rental while they're about to start building. And we moved back in a U-Haul. So you start accumulating stuff all over again, and you
Yep.
start making new memories
Yep.
and positive memories. So yeah, but that was, wow, I went on a tangent on that one. But positivity, never giving up, and always staying focused actually helps with the success, and it also helps keep you as someone who comes into a room smiling. I mean, and it's genuine.
Yeah.
All of that comes together.
And that's the stuff that people notice too, right? When you're somebody who's easy to work with, enjoyable to work with, fun to work with, it makes people want to work with you again, right? Sometimes it's not just about great voice. Sometimes it's about great collaborator.
Mm-hmm.
The big picture, right? And that makes
Yeah.
a difference. Something else that I remember you saying at a conference once, because apparently everything I've ever learned about you, I've learned from a conference, although I have read the book. But I remember you talking about coaching, you coaching. And I think that's another lesson that sometimes we forget as we make our way up to the top of the mountain, or we hit the top of the mountain, or we start to slide down the backside of the mountain. Often it's because we stopped doing all the things that got us to the top in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those things is coaching and making sure that we're still relevant, that we're still, what's booking today, what is the voice, the style, the read, etc. Talk about that. Talk about how you've always continued on that journey for yourself to continue to develop, which is part of how you've stayed relevant for so long.
Yeah, I guess so. And also that need to give back. And But and you may know this, Mark, too. I think you and I talked about it at one point. I really struggled with coaching because I wasn't sure I was a very good director. I knew what I needed to do. I could pick up a piece of copy, and I could tell by the lines that I'm going to be reading and the sound on tape, the SOTs that are in the spot. You could see what the story is, and I knew it. I knew in just instinctively what needed to be done.
Right.
Now, so I was more of an instinctive sort of you know performer, I guess, in what my intent was that I was going to bring to the copy and what I can do with it. But telling somebody else what they should do, I really struggled with it. But I pushed through it, and I learned from watching others. I learned from the people who directed me, at the networks and in sessions, and try to understand what it is that someone who is either coaching or directing can add to a talent's thought process that might just spark something that then they can take it. I think maybe the coach doesn't give you everything that you need. The coach is going to give you ideas and thoughts and ideas, and then hopefully that's going to spark your creativity, and you may do something that you never thought of doing before. I've had that happen with me in working with coaches. Dave Walsh comes to mind. I've if I'm working on something new, I'll do a session with Dave to help me with some. How do I go about this? This is so different. I've never done
Yeah.
anything like that, and to get some ideas from him. Back in the day, Maurice Tobias, um, David Alden, who's a great director, Brett Wynn, great director at Fox, who now makes movie trailers, his own company. But yeah, I think, it's important to do that. It keeps you relevant. It also allows you to share. And I think also as a coach, that you would know more than I, how it also inspires you and what it does for yourself and your career, not just your coaching career, but your voiceover career.
I had an experience in a directed session just the other day, and I don't do a ton of directed sessions just by the nature of the type of work that I do.
Hmm.
And I'll be the first to admit, sometimes I'm like, "Oh, do I really want to do this as a directed session?" Because I'm sure you've been there before, where it's like, I can record this and have it done, delivered, and
Be
edited in
done.
2.5 minutes,
Right.
or I could sit through a 90-minute directed session to get the same amount of work done. And so it's like, I just want to do it on my own. But
Yeah.
I'm in this session and we're going through the read, and one of the people that was on the line said, "I really like that, but can you try it like this?" And it was something that probably in 15 takes I would have never thought of. And I tried it the way they said it, and I was like, "Dang, that's really good."
Yeah.
And so then I'm like, afterwards, I'm like making a note. "Hey, next time, try," and like, so there's that too, right? If you're paying attention,
Absolutely.
I think maybe that's something that you've had the good fortune of, because so much of what the work that you've done is, we'll call it in studio, even though it may be, you
Sure.
know, Source Connect or whatever now, but
Yeah.
having the opportunity to have a director or
Hmm.
whatever on the other end all the time,
Some
who's
of my
you're in a
favorite work.
constant feedback loop, right?
Yeah, exactly. Some of my favorite work and bits and pieces of promos that ended up on my demo were ideas that I would have never thought of,
Yeah.
and what it brought out in me and in the performance, within a promo. It's like, wow, that was awesome. I love that, and it shows another shade of you, and it's worthy of being in the demo,
Yeah.
and for folks, and we still have demos, and demos are very, auditions and demos, I think, are still very important,
Yeah.
incredibly so.
You've mentioned Don LaFontaine a couple of times,
Mhm.
and I think that you can't get your membership card into the voiceover community unless you know of Don LaFontaine at the very least, right? Everybody knows In a World, or we've heard the stories of him riding around in his limos, or I've heard you drop the spot in a tagline and things like that all the time. And there is a legacy there, right? That forever associated with trailers, forever associated with In a World, and things of that nature. I said in the beginning that I've always I consider you one of the living legends of voiceover. And I'm just curious, you've got your Lifetime Achievement Award. You got that from Sovis, was that 2 years ago? You
Actually, it was a
2024?
year ago,
Yeah.
December. Yeah.
Yeah, 2024. Um, how do you think about your legacy? Do you think about your legacy in this industry?
That's a good question. I don't think about it. Uh, I'm happy to be able to share what my experiences were. I love, doing that. What you said at the beginning, it's like, gosh, Mark, I've told these stories of my career over and over again, and it's not that I'm getting bored with it. It's that I'm concerned that everybody else is going to get bored with it. So yeah, I've heard that. I heard that story, 5 times. So yeah, I don't really think about that at all. Haven't received that Lifetime Achievement Award was really wonderful, and the people who presented it to me are friends that go back to those days when we used to go out and we'd sit in the lobbies of recording studios. And Don LaFontaine's wife was the one who came out to present the award. Nita, who's incredibly talented in her own right. So, but the most important part for me was that my family was there. And you've said that at the beginning, how important family is. And to have my kids there who are adults and now have their own children, to have my grandkids there. Oh my God, that was just so. While I don't think about maybe where I am in the scope of things in a voiceover world and talking about legacy, I do think about how nice it is that my kids know and my grandkids know that there's something special about Papa. And my granddaughter will be in the car. I'll pick her up. Ann and I will pick her up from school, and we're taking her to dance. This is when we're in West Palm Beach, Florida, and the radio is on, and my voice comes on. We're listening to a radio station maybe that I image, and Theo will mimic it right away.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
I hear that she tells her friends, "Yeah, my Papa is famous," and I go, "Well, not really, but you do hear my voice from time to time."
It's funny that you say that, because I got asked a question on a podcast that I was on end of the year last year, and I said, when the older two girls, Maddie and Lily, were younger, I was on the fire department, and so when that question comes up,
I love your family. When you do the Christmas Eve,
yes,
gifts. Oh my God, I've watched your family grow.
Everybody has had that opportunity. God. That's something I've thought of too, but. When Maddie and Lily were younger, it was, my dad's on the fire department because my dad's a firefighter. And I mean, that's cool, right? Everybody thinks it's cool to be able to say your dad's a firefighter. But Kaylee started school in September, and dad's not a firefighter anymore. Dad's a voice actor, but it's like voice actor for some, obscure e-learning course or some random corporate video that nobody's ever heard of or whatever. And I'm like, man, that is just not cool. And so I said, like, part of what is driving me now is I want Kaylee to be able to say, when somebody asks, what did your dad do? That I can say the voice of whatever show, because Discovery or whatever, right? Like, I want to do a series. That's my ultimate end goal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing how motivating that has become for me, that like the number one driver in my career, perhaps at this point now, is my 4-year-old daughter in kindergarten being able to say, my dad's the voice of whatever, and now I'm going to do whatever I have to do to be able to get to that point. And it's amazing how our kids can have that kind of impact that we would never otherwise think of. But
absolutely. And I think you probably would find that from most parents in whatever their career is. It comes down to showing your kids what it means to make a commitment and to work hard and have success, and how that can impact them, Yeah. By the way, that Scott Rummel, who another contemporary of mine here in LA, who does a lot of movie trailers, his dad was the fire chief of Los Angeles. for years and years. And he would see his dad on TV all the time at every major fire. He would be
Yep.
interviewed.
Yep.
Chief, what do we got here, Chief?
I do miss that. I do miss that time in my life, but at the same time, now I don't. Only because I missed so much, right?
Oh, sure.
When you're volunteer,
You
you're on
almost
call.
blew it with your wife to be.
I mean, I
Okay?
did. We
Yeah.
almost altered the whole space-time continuum there with that with that one call. But so now it's landing that one job somehow, someday, some way. How much do you love being a grandpa?
Oh, God. Good grief. Wait until Ann and I were just talking about it the other day, because we're very fortunate. Our son and his wife live here in LA. They live in Thousand Oaks. They have a little daughter, Rowan, who is 6 months. And our daughter has 3 kids. Surprised the heck out of us. Last year, she had an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And right in April of last year, announces they have a bunch of friends over. It was actually my granddaughter's 8th birthday, that they were pregnant. And we're like, "You're pregnant? You're having a baby? You have an 8 and a 5-year-old." And yes, and they have. So my grandkids, and Ann and I were talking about this. It's such a different thing. Having children is wonderful, but it's a lot of work.
Yes.
And it's a lot of angst
Yes.
and worry and all of that.
Yes.
And when you have grandchildren, it's a whole different thing. You're just there. You can be there for them in every way. You don't have to be the person who's the dad or the mom,
Yep.
you're there to play.
Yep.
That's all we do is play.
Play, buy ice cream, the important things in life.
Right. Toys, And so my son and daughter-in-law were here yesterday, and we were playing with our little 6-month-old, and going through all of those things. And it's so important to me. It's so fun. It's and this happens to be here. I don't know if
There you go.
or not. Yeah.
I love it.
That's the family right there.
Nice.
Both coasts. And yeah, it's the best, Mark. Wait until you get there. It's going to be great.
I joke now because having 17, 13, and now 4 and 18 months.
Exactly.
And all girls, which has been an interesting experience. And my wife's family all lives about 8 hours away from where we are. And so when we did the basement renovation, when we found out that the one baby was coming, part of it was putting in a room for grandma. And so my mother-in-law is here a lot. And I'm like, okay, so now I'm in the house very often with my wife, my teenage daughter, my early teen daughter, my toddler daughter, my baby daughter, my mother-in-law.
Your mother-in-law. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But I wouldn't change any of it.
No.
I wouldn't.
And you have a
good
relationship with your mother-in-law?
Oh yes.
Good. That's
Yes.
nice.
I remind her every once in a while, you tick me off. I'm not going to let you come here anymore. So
it's very reminiscent of the Obama family. I mean, they had her mother living with them in the White House during his years as president.
These are the things that matter at the end of the day, though, right? And I love that. I love that you prioritize that right from the very beginning. Because if you're doing what you're doing at the level that you were doing it, network promo and all that sort of stuff, and if you can figure out a way to prioritize wife and kids and dinner and pickups from school, then I don't think there's any excuse for the rest of us to not be able to find a way to prioritize those things. And I mean, that has been a thing for me, right? Like,
yeah,
taking Kaylee to school or picking her up from school.
Let me ask you, do you feel, is it a little bit easier because you work from home, or is it more difficult because then you're called upon to work so quickly and easily?
I think that the greatest gift that voiceover has given me is the freedom and flexibility to build the life that I've wanted, like the lifestyle that I've wanted to build. And that has meant saying no to certain types of work or saying no to certain opportunities, and then trying to figure out ways to balance that out with something different that offers a little bit more of that freedom and flexibility. But I worked in radio for a lot of years, and I worked a lot of nights and a lot of weekends and every holiday and all of that sort of stuff. And when one of the girls is like, "John, I'm playing in a basketball tournament next Wednesday. Are you going to be able to come?" I can say, "Yes, I will be there."
Yeah.
And maybe I can't go for the whole thing, but at least I can go and catch a couple games or something. Like, I couldn't do that when I was
Right.
working in radio, right? That wasn't an option when
No.
you're working for somebody else. And I am grateful every day for that gift to be able to have that freedom and flexibility to do the things. Because I mean, it's so cliche, but like, nobody ever comes to the end saying, "I wished I had worked more," but everybody wishes they'd been to that game, gone to that dance recital,
Yeah.
whatever it was, right? All those moments with your kids. And I
Mhm.
think what's been really interesting for me now, having a 17-year-old, she's turning 18 in a couple of weeks. She's getting ready to go off to college in
Yeah.
September.
She wasn't able to be on the
Sh She
Christmas
couldn't be
Eve.
on the live stream because she's working now. She's got
Yeah.
a job.
Yeah.
But seeing her and facing that reality of one getting ready to leave and realizing that this time comes to an end, right?
Mhm.
Like, not that she's out of our life or anything like that, but you only get so many years where they're here full time in yours.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
it's made me look at Kaylee and Kinsley, the two youngest ones, in a different light, recognizing like, wow, don't miss this,
Absolutely.
because one day they're going to go to school, and it
Yeah.
happens faster than you realize.
Mhm. Mhm. It does. It really, and it accelerates as you get older as well,
Yeah.
which why did they make it that
I would
way?
love to know the answer to that question, because I feel that too, Joe. I
Yeah.
have not come up with a good answer for that yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I could keep you here and talk about this stuff for hours, but I think part of your legacy has been what you have done for the community in training up the next, we'll call them generation or whatever, of voice actors who are
Mm.
preparing for careers. I'm sure that you could probably look to former students, and if you're, I feel like you're probably like me in that regard, that a student's success is like almost as exciting, if not more exciting, than some of my own successes, when I can
Yeah.
look at somebody that I've coached and seen what they've done and said, "Wow, I helped them get there," or whatever. And I'm sure you've probably had some of those moments.
Absolutely.
So just talk a little bit about the promo masterclass and what you have to offer, because I do think that that is part of your legacy, is making sure that there are a whole new batch of voices that will be there and ready to come up behind you. And I appreciate that you do that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Mark. And I'm really enjoying it. I mean, I said earlier how it was a little scary to get into coaching and learning how to um, communicate what it is that's in my head and put it into words and help a talent. But yeah, doing and I know the other thing that I think I'm pretty good at is I know what I can do. I know where my strengths are.
Mhm. Yeah.
And and promo is like at the top, the
Yep.
pinnacle of that. So I'm not going to be able to help people in the commercial world with those reads, and maybe even though I've done narration and things like that, I don't know what I can lend there, but at least I know that I know promo.
Yep.
And I'm a student of it, and I always have been. So I'm always watching promos, and used to joke that back in the days when we were in radio, and maybe this is true for you, I don't know. We'd be driving from Washington, D.C., where we met, and my parents lived in Connecticut. So that's 5-hour drive up there, listening to the radio and turning up the radio when the disc jockey would talk. And then as the cool song begins,
Yeah.
turn it down. And
Yep.
she's like, "What? I
What are you
don't
doing?
understand. This is backwards land. What are you doing? You turn down the music and you turn." Well, yeah, and it's the same thing with promos. I don't skip through promos
Yep.
on the DVR. I want to watch them and see. I was just watching one during the Golden Globes, and I was like, "Whoa, I didn't know that voice." And I said, "Wow, that's a throwback." It almost sounds I hear a little bit of Don's texture in there, and I was like, "That doesn't make sense. That's not the current read." But now it's got me thinking, "All right, I gotta look into this a little bit. Why and who?" And is that the beginning of a trend? I doubt it. I hope that the creatives, that the networks are always thinking, what can we do that's a little bit different, and try to pique people's interest. Listen, it's all about getting people into the tent to watch the show.
Yep.
We're all there
Yep.
going like this, come watch our show. It's
Yep.
just how you do it. Are you doing it like this? Are you doing it like this?
Yep.
There's all of these different ways of doing it. So learning about that, being able to teach that, and working with a lot of different people, because I'm doing it online. I've learned that with this platform that I use, which is asynchronous, it's pretty much like our conversation we're having right now, except there's a span of time in between where
Sure.
you ask your question and I respond.
Yep.
But it's a one-on-one relationship. Nobody else is involved. There might be
Right.
5 other voiceover talent that's in that booklet on that platform. I have a lot of different booklets going on at once, but we're doing a 101, and it is a singular conversation,
I like that.
where I'm just focused on what you're doing, and hopefully you're listening to what I'm saying. So when it was my daughter-in-law who found that platform, and when I started to investigate and learn about it, I said, "Wow, this is so much better than when we're at conferences and we have 12 people in a room and
Yep.
we have 3 hours. I can't get them up to read every spot. I'm lucky if I get them up on 3 spots.
Yep.
That's in 3 hours. That's going through 12 people.
Yep.
This one, the master class is 20 spots. They're reading on all 20 spots multiple times with direction in between each read. That's exciting to me.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that Sarah found that for me, and that it's my way of being able to kind of give back and share some knowledge. The other thing, Mark, and I'm sure you have this as well, when you get somebody new that has come in and they do their first read, I love that. I love when they do their first read and being surprised at, like, whoa, this person has
Yeah.
just got it.
Yep.
Never done it. I've worked with people that I've never done a promo before, but I'd like to do it. And then they do their first read, and it's like, it just blows the back of your head off. It's like, oh
Yep.
my gosh, this is going to be exciting. And then
Yeah.
also taking people who are slow to start and watch them grow throughout
Yes.
the course, and and future coaching. It's exciting, and I know you feel that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Joe, this has been awesome.
This is great.
I
Thank you,
hope
Mark.
I hope it's felt like it was a little bit different from all
Yes,
the
it
other
was. Yes, it was.
interviews you've done before. Maybe we got to hear some new stories. I
Yes.
One of the things that I'm a little bit selfish. I try not to be, but sometimes every once in a while I have somebody on the podcast where I feel like I'm being a little bit selfish, because it's like I want to find out for my own, right? I want to talk to this guy who's had this incredibly successful marriage in the midst of also an incredibly successful career. And I want to learn something from that guy so that, can I be a better voice actor? Sure. But would I be just as happy if I walked away with a tip that made me a better husband? Yeah. Heck yeah. I want it. Right. And
Love that.
so I just really thank you for
Mm.
your transparency, for your honesty, and for,
Well,
man, you are one of those guys that every time I see you, I'm just like, that guy, look at that guy. I don't know. The positivity, the smile, the energy that you put off, man, it warms up a room. And I'm
thank
grateful to you
you.
for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I throw it right back at you. I mean, talking about how I know I've never met your kids, but I've seen your kids grow, and what you do every year in giving back, with the 12 days of Christmas, and it gets bigger and bigger every year. It's amazing. But then also when you're in your coaching, you know, you do something that is so different that as well as regular coaching and voiceover coaching, but about the business side of it. And people just, you know, have to learn that more and more because of the way the business is. You're a solopreneur, right?
Yep,
And
it's
you
true.
have to do everything, and you're running your company, and you're helping talent understand, you know, how to handle the business side of it while pursuing their creative pursuits, you know. Yeah. So right back at you.
Thank you, Joe. This has been great. We'll do it again sometime. We'll try not to wait another 300 episodes to do it again.
Okay. Good deal.
All right, Joe, if somebody wants to find out about the masterclass, or if somebody wants to get connected with you, send you a kind word or something like that, where do we find you? How do we get connected
you
with
can
you?
always, the website is joecipriano.com, and you can click there to send me an email, and it comes right here. It's hello Joe at joecipriano.com. So that's that. The promo masterclass is promomasterclass.com.
Okay.
And you can go there and learn more about that. Follow me on Instagram. I follow you on Instagram. It's Joe Cipriano VO. And that's always fun, always putting up not only stuff about work and the business, but a lot of stuff about the grandkids.
That's where I was doing some of my research. I was like, I could just look at your Instagram and be like, I'm going to ask this guy, talk about your grandkids. And I could picture what your face was going to do, because it's so obvious from the way that you, the way that you share them. So, all right, Joe. Well, thank you so much. I truly do appreciate it.
I love it. Thanks, Mark. See you soon.